So this is an explanation of the first two features of interactive focusing, which are the focuser as storyteller and the focuser as teacher. Focuser as storyteller is something that when Janet Klein and Mary McGuire developed interactive focusing, they believed was really important to the relational part of interactive focusing, on the premise that the listener had to know some of the focuser's context, not all, but at least some, in order to be able to really hold how it is for the focuser, because that's what interactive focusing is based on. So the idea is that in any given session, the focuser spends maybe a third to half of the time telling their story. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to tell every detail of the story, but you have to give context. And the listener can either reflect from the story if the focuser wants that, or just listen. And the listener is keeping track of what the focuser is saying. In some traditional focusing sessions, I've heard it said that you only reflect when there's an emotion or a felt sense described, but this is all at the discretion of the focuser and the listener. So tell a bit of story, and then in the second half or so of the focuser's turn, they're felt sensing how it is for them with their story. And in that regard, there is no difference whatsoever from traditional or classic or standard focusing as you know it. The felt sensing is exactly the same. The focuser completes their turn, and then the interactive process goes on. That's all there is to focuser as storyteller. It's just about giving some context, a little bit of facts, or something that helps the listener understand what this felt sensing experience the focuser is having is about. The other concept is focuser as teacher. In my opinion, this is not unique, different, or special to interactive focusing. It's just got a nice title, but in all the focusing I've ever done, the same thing happens. I just didn't know to call it focuser as teacher. And the thing that happens is that the focuser is in charge. That's another way I've heard it said. The focuser tells the listener how they would like to be heard and how they would like to be reflected, whether they would like suggestions and guidance or not. Some people are trained to give guidance, but the focuser doesn't always want it. Suggestions are welcome. Ann Weiser Cornell in particular has a very nice way of offering suggestions. If it seems right, you might ask if is one of her phrases. But the focuser ultimately decides what among these various offerings they would like. And it ranges, I can tell you from personal experience, to a focuser who wants nothing but the listener to hold the space. That happened to me early in my focusing career, and the only little glitch was that the focuser didn't mention that this was what he does. And I sat there for 25 minutes in silence, and I could hear him breathing. I knew he was there, but he never said, I just want you to hold the space. And when I finally asked him, he said this beautiful thing. He said, knowing that you are there holding the space is the most important thing to me, and it allows me to do my process. So silence on the part of the focuser is one end of the continuum, and the other end of the continuum is a focuser who invites risk-taking on the part of the listener, meaning if you have an edgy suggestion, go ahead and make it. I have a couple of partners who routinely say, please take risks, to gentle suggestions for those of us that are trained as guides to actually give guidance during the session. But ultimately, the focuser is the one that says, so it's focuser as teacher, teacher maybe in air quotes, teaching the listener how they want to be heard and held. And I don't know, to me, teacher seems a little bit assertive because I'm already trained and I'm already an experienced listener, but the idea that I'm going to be a student of this new person I might meet. So imagine a focuser that I don't know at all. I just met them in a changes meeting. I want them to teach me how they would like to be listened to. And so those are the two concepts we're going to start with, focuser as storyteller and focuser as teacher. And for our time and changes today, we can do a round robin exercise where we all get to practice that. We can do it fairly free form, ask questions as we go.